Hello, this is Module 3 for the Communication Strategies course, and this is the lesson guide on patient-centered communication. I want to make the point right off the bat that any of these tools and strategies can be used with any conversation that you have with your spouse or your family or your colleagues, but also with patients and families. So we don't need to limit it. We're going to review some of the different communication strategies, and we're going to do that based on a Venn diagram that Dr. Jillian Gustin and I put together in 2009 that kind of incorporates all of the information that was in the literature at the time. And this is also based on the seminal work by Epstein and Street and is a part of the NCI monolith that you have as part of the course. We kind of came together with 5 elements, whereas Epstein and Street talked about 6. And the center element is that shared decision-making piece, or at least some tools to kind of assist with that. On this diagram, you can see that we have 4 bubbles. One is assessing patient perspective. Second is exchange information. Third is attend to emotion. And fourth is manage uncertainty. Now in the center bubble, the shared decision making, you already looked at in Module 2 on the SPIKES protocol. And when we get to the 5th bubble, then at the end of this slide presentation, I'm going to show you another tool that you can use with families called VALUE. But let's start with the outside bubble, assess patient perspective. Now, on the outer edges of the bubbles, you can see are words, and those are the tools that we can use in the particular bubbles. And as you look around the outside of the bubbles, you'll see that several of the tools are repeated more than once, so that these tools can be used for lots of different opportunities in different ways to build a relationship and to help us with the communication with the individual that we're interacting with. So let's start with assessing patient perspective, which will use the tools Ask, Tell, Ask, Active Listening, and Tell Me More. And we're going to spend time with Ask, Tell, Ask under Exchange Information. So in assessing patient perspective, we have active listening, and that's probably the most important tool that we can use. Active listening encompasses compassionate silence and reflective questioning. You can see that in silence, it's really important for us to really reduce our own inner talking, time to stop the words that are going over and over in our heads and thinking about what we're going to say next, and really think about what is the individual saying to us. So we're going to quieten down our own inner dialogue. We're going to work really hard to hear the words that are being said to us and the meanings behind those words. And we're going to pay attention to any nonverbal cues from the individual that might help us better understand some of those hidden meanings. And reflective questioning gives us the opportunity to kind of talk with them to say, am I understanding you correctly? Or am I hearing you say XYZ? That's going to help us get to those 3 levels of conversation and the hidden stories. The 3 levels of conversations include the facts, a little bit deeper is the feelings, and even deeper is the meanings behind those facts and feelings. Whenever possible, you can always ask the individual that you're talking with, what is your understanding of what's going on, whether it's someone's illness or their own illness? How are you handling or coping with that information or the news or whatever's going on with them at the time? And then the final one is, what does this mean to you? What does this really mean? How is it affecting your life, the life of your family, and the dreams that you have for the future? And then the other part, or the other tool for assessing patient perspective, is Tell Me More. Tell Me More is just a wonderful tool. It's the tool that I use whenever I've got that knot in the pit of my stomach that says, oh my gosh, what do I do now? So in Tell Me More, it gives us the opportunity to take a deep breath, to step back and say, you know, help me understand the things that the physician just said to you. Or tell me more about what the physician said and how that makes you feel. Okay? Or help me understand how you're feeling about what I just told you. Okay? So you can use it in lots of different ways, but it really does give you a chance to feel like you can step back, you can look at a bigger picture. You don't have to have all the answers. The next bubble we're going to look at is exchange information. And in this bubble, we're going to look at the tool Ask, Tell, Ask. In Ask, Tell, Ask, it reminds us that before we give information, it's really important for us to ask, what does the individual already know? So, for example, what's most important for us to talk about today? Or to make sure we're on the same page, help me understand what you understand about your illness or your loved one's illness. Or I've had a chance to look over your chart, but tell me what you understand the doctors to say to you, because it helps me to understand what you know. And then once you gather all that information, then you don't really have to repeat some of the things that they already know. You can tell them what they need to know, very straightforward, very short, and very digestible chunks. You don't have to give them a long explanation. You can give it to them very, very short and quick. And short and sweet might be the best way to do that, especially when we've got difficult information, because that often is what our cancer patients have, really hard information to hear. And then before we finish up, we can ask again, what did they understand about what we just said? What did they really hear us say? One good way to do that is to kind of take yourself out of that power perspective and really say, to make sure that I did a good job of helping you understand what I just told you, tell me what you're going to tell your daughter when you get home later on today. Something along those lines. Okay, so those are two of the bubbles, two of the four bubbles. And before we go further, I just want to take a quick break and to give you the opportunity to look at the Venn diagram as we're going through and point out that, again, even though we're going clockwise around the circle, you don't have to. If you're giving bad news, then assessing patient perspective and exchanging information are probably the only two bubbles you need to do, along with attending to emotion, assuming that it's really tough news. Okay, so you may only use one or two of the bubbles in a given interaction. You may not use all of them, and because some of them are really in depth, you probably don't want to use all of them.